Ms. Palojärvi, Dr. Haaga-Helia, and Ms. Haapaniemi. So I will ask them to come up in time, each of them, give them an opportunity to speak, and we're going to shorten it somewhat so that there will be time for at least one question for each of the panelists. Thank you very much.
I will just continue by saying some words of Finnish education system as such and referring to teachers. My colleague will continue with teacher training and more detailed aspects. But in general, as our minister stated, Finland is doing quite well in international rankings concerning education today. And this is very difficult for a Finn. I don't know how many Finns you know, but we are known as being very moderate people, so it's very difficult to say that we are very good in something. But it seems to be that we are doing something right. Anyway, but it didn't come out of nowhere. So what I don't know, if you are aware of, is that still in early 60s, when I was born, Finland was one of the poorest countries in Europe. We are recovering from the Second World War. We were an agricultural country, and industrialization was just about to start. And it has been a very, very long way of being a country which is ranking on the top of the competitiveness in international surveys, in education, and whatever it takes in high technology. How did we do this? We did it coming from the country where we have hardly any natural resources. We have some forest, yes, and we have plenty of lakes, but it doesn't help you very much, does it? But we had a couple of million of human brains. And it was a decision, very determined decision, to invest on human development in those days. And now we are kind of enjoying the fruits of that. But it didn't come overnight, and it did come suddenly. And as our minister pointed out, that's the battle which will last forever. So it's never-ending story. So if we just stand back and be satisfied in the present world, in this very rapidly changing world, we will be lagging behind, and we need kind of a constant development of our education system. But just to provoke some discussion, I just want to highlight some phenomena of Finnish education system. So, and I'm often asked, what is the secret of Finnish education? I don't know if there is any secret, but if I have to appoint one secret of Finnish success in education, I would quote our ex-president Tarja Halonen, who always was also asked, how is Finland doing so well in education? What's the secret of Finnish success in the world? I said, okay, 3 reasons I can appoint. Teachers, teachers, and teachers. And I think that very well covers it. Because without teachers, whole education system will be like an empty shell. We can create, in administration where I come from, in the ministry, we can create structures and skeletons, but flesh and blood is made by teachers in the classroom. And in Finland, it has been a very, very long process for the administration to, let's say, let it go, to create trust, to say that, okay, we don't have to steer, we don't have to control so much, but we can educate and train excellent experts to the field, and then we can trust them. So this is basically, I know this is very weird concept, but it's part of the philosophy behind our education and education system in general. And if I would like you to remember 2 sentences of the Finnish education. That is, the first one is that we don't trust so much on steering, but we trust on learning. So as Minister said, we gave up the school inspectors, if I just give you some examples. We gave up the school inspectors in early 90s. There are no school inspection in Finland. We don't have any national standardized testing in Finland, in our compulsory basic education. But we are trusting that the teachers are able to assess the performance of the pupils. So that we don't have tests, it doesn't mean that we are not willing to promote learning. And also, we are having just core curricula nationwide, and we are leaving the finalizing of the curriculum to the schools, to the teachers, to the principals, and to the municipalities to give the local ingredients to the curricula. And another sentence I would like you to remember is that we are not believing that quality is directly linked to the quantity. In Finland, we have one of the shortest school days in the world. We have very little homework compared to very many other countries. Let's say that if we are looking Asian countries who are ranking very well in education surveys, that's a very big difference between Finland. But we believe that during the school day, if we concentrate on learning, we can do a lot. And we can do it a bit differently than just making students to sit behind their desks and listening to the teacher. But you can see and you will hear some examples of how we can break kind of the borders of the school day. And that is what our new core curricula is also very much encouraging, as the minister referred. I'm not going to speak very much about vocational education and training, but I really want to mention it because that's the other coin of the education system. In Finland, I know my colleague Jari Laukia will speak a bit more about vocational education and training and professional training, but it's very important to remember that also academic career is not for everybody, but we need skilled labor, we need skilled professionals in our society to be competitive and to have competitive economy. So in Finland, vocational education and training, we make a choice and streaming at the age of 15. About half of the 15-year school leavers, their first choice is vocational education and training. And we have it has been a very, very long way we have been doing before we are at this stage. But now we do, and we are very happy and very satisfied for that. So that was pretty much what I wanted to say. As Minister said, there are all the time ongoing reforms. We have reformed our higher education. Now we are reforming our vocational education and training, have just created new core curriculas, and we are now also revising the teacher training with Teacher Training Forum. Is taking quite lead of that, and Jari Lavonen, who is collaborating with your school and with Johannesburg, is one of the very prominent persons in this reform as well. But thank you, that was my share. My colleagues will continue. Thank you.
I was watching people's faces while you were talking, and probably what you explained with around the Finnish teacher education system is exactly the opposite of what we have here. It's completely centralized with much monitoring, etc. So hopefully there are lessons we can learn from Finland in this respect. If I could welcome our next speaker up to the stage, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Jari Laukia. I come from Haaga-Helia, University of Applied Sciences, there in Helsinki, Finland, and I'm a director of School of Vocational Teacher Education. We educate teachers for vocational schools and universities of applied sciences. And like Jaana Palojärvi mentioned, vocational education is also an important part of our education system. And maybe Finland is very famous for education, but I would like to inform you or that you remember that Finland is also a special country where both vocational education, practical education and academic education are both appreciated. And when I say vocational and use this concept of vocational, it means all education which educates workers for practical sectors, business, technology, transportation, tourism, hotel, nursing, whatsoever, agriculture. This concept vocational includes all those kind of education. It was more than 100 years ago, in 19th century, very famous Finnish philosopher Johann Wilhelm Snellman, he was also very interested in education. He wanted to develop education. And he said that academic education, academic knowledge, indeed brings new idea for the society. And it is important and it is necessary to have very qualified academic education. But if we really want to change the society, if we really want to make practical development and develop, for example, our business life and the society and the equality of the society, we need also practical skills and competencies. And I think it's a very good idea. But it took more than 100 years also in Finland unless we had a decent and good, well-organized vocational education, systematic vocational education, and that we had vocational education institution network during those days which covered all the country. And during those days, in the end of 1950s, in the beginning of 1960s, we also developed a systematic teacher education for persons who were teaching there in vocational education sector. And the system was such that we enrolled students for this teacher pedagogical education from those persons who already had vocational degree somewhere, and they had also work experience in their own field. And because we had to educate, because the amount of students in vocational education was increasing very rapidly in 1960s, 1970s, so we had to educate teachers very quickly. And this system was very economical and it was quick. And in fact, we still have this kind of the system that when we enroll our teacher students, we check that they have degree, vocational degree required. Normally it is a bachelor level University of Applied Science degree or university degree, and then they must have minimum 3 years work experience in their own field, and then they are free to apply for our pedagogical education. And our education in our country is 60 ECTS points, about 1 academic year. And we have a nationwide qualification requirements for teachers who want to become teachers in vocational education sector, either vocational school, upper secondary level education, or University of Applied Science sector. In our University of Applied Sciences also teachers, they must have masters, but they must have also pedagogical education. So we concentrate also in University of Applied Sciences for learning and the quality of education. This education includes theoretical studies in pedagogy. It includes also vocational pedagogical studies. It includes teaching practice when teacher students, they are practicing how to behave, what kind of pedagogical methods to use, how to motivate students to learning, how to assess that students really are learning what they should learn, how to make work cooperation with world of work. In our country, vocational institutions, however we call, they are something like school-based, but they work very closely, close cooperation with world of work. And in our vocational education, there is also on-the-job learning periods when students go to business life to learn the most current technical skills and competencies. Also, our education includes optional studies where teacher students, they may concentrate, for example, special needs pedagogy or information, how to use information technology in the area of education. Also, assessment is extremely important aspect in the area of education. So, but why did we establish this vocational teacher education? There were two reasons. We wanted to increase the quality of vocational education, and the second was that we wanted to increase the appreciation of vocational education. And we wanted to have educated teachers compared to basic education, where we already had educated teachers in the very beginning. Why is vocational education important? It is important for the economy. Education increases the gross domestic production. We have very clear scientific results for this. Education is important of assimilation of young students to the society. This is absolutely key element. Also, vocational education, together with general education, is important for societal equality. We must appreciate practical education and academic education. Also, vocational education educates good and decent citizens who are able to earn their own living, they have a future, and they have trust for the future. And also, vocational education is important to increase this entrepreneurship. Many of those persons, for example, in Finland, if we estimate what kind of background our private company owners have, most of them, they have vocational education. Some 35% of company owners, they have vocational education. But maybe we have some time for discussions, but this was my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Laukia. I think one of the things you've highlighted is an issue we're struggling with in this country, where vocational education is seen almost as a stepchild. It's not something you want to do. University education is seen as the most important thing, qualification, and it's probably why we have such a skill shortage in this country. So hopefully we can learn from the Finns in this regard as well. And could I then just ask, thank you for keeping to time, our last speaker to come up, please. Thank you.
I'm a CEO of a company called Polar Partners. I'm also a teacher by my background, so and I might have to say that quite a radical and also a little bit critical one. Yesterday, when we were visiting a school, I was asked quite an interesting question by one of the teachers in the school. We were talking about the achievements of Finnish educational system and our curriculums and so on, and then she asked actually quite good question, and it was that if, in case, you have succeeded all the things that you have as a nation in education with the old curriculums, why do you keep changing them? And I was actually thinking for a while that, yeah, that's a good question. Why do we change something that is already good? And what I think is that in Finland, we do think a lot of future. And what will the world look like in 10 years? And based on that, and if you are starting to look into the future, you see a lot of things. And then you see the need to change also. To the constant changing and renewing things, I think we have a good drive in Finland. And I would like to mention a few megatrends that I think have been affecting a lot in our society and in the world lately even. So if my colleagues were talking about the basics of Finnish education and also different kind of paths that a young person can take in Finland, I would like to say a few things that where are the kids going? In what kind of world are they going after they leave the school? Because I think in a person's life, a school is rather a small part. And after that starts the other life, the working life, and maybe a life for a family, and so on. So for example, extreme longevity. So people are living longer nowadays than they were in the past. And how does that affect our education, the professions in the future, and where the world is going? What kind of work are we doing in the future when people are living longer? What kind of career paths does it set? And also, what kind of services are we needing in the future? Also, another megatrend, I would say that, for example, the rise of smart machines and systems. So, in the future, more and more, we can program the world, and we can plan different things, and there is a lot of technology that is not existing today, but will be existing in few years. And how can we educate our kids to understand different kind of technologies and, for example, coding? In the Finnish new curriculum, we had coding as a subject in school. And actually it is, I feel, one of the languages of the future. Like Finnish language or English language, you don't have to be professional in coding or making games, but you have to understand the language to be able to, for example, cooperate with people who are very good at it. Also, new media. One example in Finland is that we have a lot of young people that are having their own YouTube channels and so on nowadays, and I guess it's the same all over the world. Like we said, kids are pretty much the same everywhere. So one of the kids that has a YouTube channel in Finland is actually more followed than our national news. So people become media, and we are media all the time. We leave a trace somewhere. And how do we educate our kids into a world that is working like that? How are they being able to be in media responsibly, use it safely, but also create media, and they understand what it means? And there is a lot more megatrends also. Globally connected world. World is getting smaller every day. And how our attitudes are towards other people, other religions, other cultures, other customs. I think those kind of skills of being adaptive, being open-minded are very, very important for us as teachers to acknowledge ourselves, but also things to discuss with the kids in the lessons. So what I would like to end with is that instead of thinking about so much academically, even though I'm now in university talking, so I think education and good education is not just academic mathematics, languages, chemistry, something. It's skills for life, for the future, for the afterlife of school. And by having those skills around every day in the lessons, and then think about a skill, and then your, for example, subject you're teaching, I think it should go in that way around. Not teaching the subject first, and then maybe some skill in there. Okay, that's for me. Thank you.